Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Work.knits podcast. My name is Lauren, I'm coming to you from England in the United Kingdom, and today my voice sounds dreadful. So please bear with me, I will give a bit more of an explanation towards the end of the podcast. Don't worry, I'm fine, but apologies if I sound quite nasally, and the lack of makeup. But this is a podcast where I talk about knitting, everything that I'm working on, what I've just finished, future plans, and some other little crafty bits and pieces sprinkled in. I am so pleased that you're joining me today. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for swinging by again to spend some more time with me and leaving all these lovely comments, having these conversations with me about what you're making. I really love to hear from you down below in the comments section. And for new viewers, thank you for checking out this podcast. I know there's so many of us now creating these videos and we've all got something different to bring to the table, and I'm just so grateful that you're spending some time seeing whether this is a good fit for you. So, I'm coming today from a slightly different location. I'm at my parents' house. I've got a lovely wood-burning fire next to me, although this may get a bit warm because the sun is finally shining here in the UK after multiple days of rain. So I may have to adjust midway through. Let's see how this goes. I've got a really luxurious creamy hot chocolate as well to enjoy as I chat to you, so I hope you can grab something that you would enjoy eating, drinking, and sit back and relax. So before I get going on finished objects, works in progress, etc., the jumper that I am wearing today is the Gallant Sweater Mohair Edition by Kadri, I believe. I always get this wrong, like Kadri or Zeta, but I think this is Kadri. And I didn't knit it in mohair, but I followed the mohair version instructions. This is a gently funneled necked raglan sweater. The sleeves on mine have come up a little bit short despite multiple reknits, and that's to do with the yarn that I used, which is now one of my new favourite yarns, but I've learned a lot about how it responds to blocking. So this is knit up in Wee County yarns in the Kinross 4-ply in the colourway Quartz. And it is so beautifully soft when washed and blocked. It gets all that spinning oil out of it, and it's just, oh, so perfect, but it really shrinks up vertically and expands horizontally. So yeah, just adjusting for that now in new projects. Right, I was going to wait a bit and see if I was okay with the heat of the fire directly behind me. I thought it was very aesthetic, but actually no, so I'm going to need to move you guys a bit, so apologies. And maybe we'll go there, and I can put my back against the sofa. Okay, that's better. Hope you guys can still hear me okay, hope angles are okay, volume's okay. Okay, so I didn't think I'd have a finished object for this episode. I actually recorded this originally on Friday, thinking that I'd then get it uploaded on Sunday, but it would be kind of all done. And then I thought, no, actually I really want to come fresher today, which is the normal for me. I normally record on a Sunday and then publish on a Sunday too. But one of the reasons for that, and I said I'd come more to this later, but it's relevant to my one and only finished object, which I did not have on Friday, is I am back at my parents' home because I've had my hen party, or Bachelorette as I think they call it in the States and elsewhere. I had my hen party this weekend, and my parents very kindly gave up their house for me and my friends to have a really good time. My wonderful sister planned everything. We've had an amazing weekend. It's one of the reasons my voice is quite hoarse. I have also had a stinking cold for the entirety of the weekend. But one of the activities that she planned, which was so lovely, was garter making. So we all had like sets of ribbons and lace and elastic and little bits to make our own garters, and this is mine. And I just think they're so lovely. Like, what a lovely little project to do with friends. You don't need huge sewing skills or experience to make them, and they're pretty quick. Like, we've done these in just a few hours in between other activities. So nice for everyone to do them together. And they're just a bit of fun, and that's a balloon popping in the background making me jump. They have been slowly popping throughout the weekend. Sorry, lots of ums today. So my one and only finished object, it's not a knitty one, but it is handmade, guys, and I think that's pretty impressive and pretty cute. So very, very happy with that. So worth coming to you later than planned, or rather re-recording, just to be able to show you that. I also have this awesome coral coloured lace. It's probably glaring a bit on camera, but hoping to make, that's better, hoping to make a second version, maybe with like a cranberry ribbon through the middle. I think would be really cool. But then I'll have two, and I might even wear one on my wedding, because why not? So that's my one little finished object for this week. I have also, though, been knitting away on several whips. For those who watched the last episode, you're probably expecting some work on my really cool, well, I think it's really cool, navy and neon slipover, but I haven't worked on that actually. It's been a very busy couple of weeks, and a couple of weeks where I've been in a very specific kind of knitting mojo. So, which one do I want to start on? Let's start on this one. So for those who've watched for a little while, you might recognise this project. This is my so-called grink wrap. Grink because it's going to end up being a combination of grey and pink, super original. But this is actually my first intarsia project that I've ever done, and I'm just doodling geometric blocks in different colours of mohair held with a strand of the same yarn that goes through all of it apart from this dark grey end, ignore that for the moment. So basically this light blocks here are a strand of Knoll Yarn's Superfine Lamb's Wool in the shade Almond, and I've held with it a strand of Isaiah mohair in the Ecru colourway. I've then continued to hold the Knoll Yarn's Almond strand, but then instead for this medium pink swapped in Gulrock Fibres Rose Gold mohair. Beautiful mohair, I cannot say enough about it. I picked up a skein of it at Wonderwool Wales earlier this year, and it's got this incredible gold core, but then this gorgeous rose coloured mohair, and they do it by dyeing it twice, and the silk picks up a different colour to the mohair. It's stunning. So then I've alternated those two, doing kind of quite simple intarsia shapes. This is rolling at the edges a bit at the moment because it's stockinette, as you guys will know. And then I'm beginning to introduce this darker shade, which is a little 25 gram ball of Shalana mohair, which was a mohair I picked up in Sweden. And this is colour 210 from memory. So yeah, and so I will just keep alternating different mohair colours, introducing them in whilst always holding this almond colour until I've run out of all the different shades of mohair, particularly this pink, like medium pink, which is providing the background. And then I'm going to do a border holding two strands of Knoll Yarn Superfine Lamb's Wool in the shade Oxford, which is this like navy grey colour. It's gorgeous, super complex colour, but really, really like it. So I will probably double the depth of this current border and then do that the whole way around, and then I'm going to finish it with an I-cord. So a fairly simple construction principle, but a great opportunity for me to doodle with colour, with shape, with intarsia. It's really good fun. This has been on my needles for a while. The reason I haven't made much progress is at some points there are just lots of balls of yarn, because not only am I doing intarsia, but then I'm holding two different yarns together as a, to make a single colour. So I've just got loads of balls on the go, all the balls. So that's why it's not been very portable, and therefore I haven't had as much progress on it as I'd like. But the slow, steady pace is not a reflection of my enjoyment of the project. I've really, really enjoyed it. So I've got about this much left of the Gulrock mohair, quite a bit. So we will just keep going until that is finished. So that's my first whip, guys. All the sorry, so conscious of it. Normally not what I'm like, but I'm gonna have a sip of hot chocolate, and then I'm gonna show you one whip that should be quite familiar from the last episode. Oh, that's so good. I barely ever have a hot chocolate, but today it's really hitting the spot. Okay, this was something that I've cast on really recently. I'd had the vision for this in my mind for so long. The cast on numbers only, that's pretty much the only part that I used a pattern for, and I used the original cast on numbers for Petite Knits No Frill Sweater. I think I used the smallest size cast on numbers because I then knew I was going to do the raglan increases just based on eye and, trying it on. So because I knew I wasn't going to follow anything further, I literally just used those initial cast on numbers. I did a couple of short rows to raise the back, but really like not many at all. I'm not a massive short rows raise the back of the neckline fan. Generally, I find actually often on me personally, it then ends up creating a bump at the back of my neck that doesn't look very good. That may be just my particular body shape. And then I think last episode I just split for the sleeves and kind of started knitting the body. I've now finished knitting both sleeves on, so you can see I've still got a lifeline in, maybe you can see just here. It's also in grey, which doesn't really help, but I've got them in both sleeves. I left the lifelines in because depending how much yarn was left for me to do the sleeves, I did them after I'd done the body. I just wasn't sure if I was going to end up wanting to get a new ball of yarn to make them long sleeved, and if I did that I'd want to rip back and then do helical knitting alternating skeins. As it happens, that's not what I'm going to do, and I've just left them in for now because I can't bother to take them out yet. They also provide a really helpful marker for me when I'm applying these shoulder patches, which are knit using, I think the author's name's Alison Ellen, I think. I will try and put in the description box below. There's a book called Knitting Design, Colour and Texture, and she teaches you how to do these welted diamond shapes, and basically I've just made 4 of those, two with one colour as the main colour, 2 switching that round. The yarn and the colours is Coop Knit Socks Yeah, leftovers from my Time to Decompress socks. The blue is Chryso and the orange is Almudine, and I knit these diamonds on 2.25mm needles, so like sock needles. I then seamed them all together. There is a version in the book that shows you how to knit them together as you go, but I thought doing them all separately would help me figure out like kind of yarn chicken situations and just give me more flexibility. But now with the benefit of hindsight, I know I could have just made them as one block. But anyway, so I seamed the 4 diamonds together and then applied them to the shoulder. This one is seamed on 2 sides, the top 2 sides by the neckline up here, and I now just need to attach the bottom 2 and make sure I get the right amount of stretch to really like show off the different colours and textures. And then for the other shoulder, I have knit 2 of the diamonds. I need to knit the other 2 and then obviously seam them together, apply them. And there's loads to talk about on this. I haven't yet mentioned what I've knit the main body in. The main body is knitted in Rawork Sport from their type 2017-2018 flock shearing. So if you haven't heard of Rawork is a small batch yarn producer out of Germany, and what's really nice is on each of their skeins it tells you when the sheep was sheared, where it was then processed, and when it was finally skeined, so you really get a real sense of where your yarn is coming from. This colourway, a bit like my jumper, actually is in the colourway Quartz, and it's got quite a yellow background to it, which is quite nice. It shows there's not been too much bleaching involved, but I actually quite like the yellow. I think it kind of really lifts the grey and kind of looks quite good against the skin. It's quite a rustic yarn, but I think it will be soft enough. I did a bit of a neck test, and I went back in and picked up the neckline. I've done a folded neckline. It's looking a bit funny when I'm holding it like this, but I think when it's on the rounded shape of my body, that will be fine. I need to do folded little hems on the sleeve, and I did do a folded hem on the bottom already. In terms of further construction and shaping, I did a number of raglan increases, and then I worked both sides flat for a bit before joining at the underarm again with like 2 to 4 stitches. I really love this compound of like what would be almost like a satin sleeve type front construction, or even like a kind of bottom up sweater construction. This kind of knitting flat, both sides flat so they're straight. That then going into a raglan, I find it just sits really nicely across the shoulder, but then really gives you that flexibility to get the proportions of your sweater or your top right for your bust line, and for the difference between your above bust and mid bust and under bust measurements, and then also the size of your arms. It just really lets you play with what, proportion of stitches in different places. So If people would be interested in me doing a video explain that in a bit more detail and how you flex that, would love to make one of those, but obviously only if it's going to be of interest to people. But that's what I did here, and then I did some decreases down the sides. I think every 5 to 7 rounds I did decreases, 2 decreases each side, either side of 2 stitches, to kind of make a kind of nice column, and then knit straight for probably, I reckon, about 3 inches, 2 to 3 inches before then working the folded hem. So the folded hem is in addition to those 2, so probably 5 inches total, without any shaping. I could go on for days, but yes, I guess the final thing I'd say is looking at the proportions of this top and how did I decide on the shape and the number of stitches. Sorry about me shuffling to get back into position, but in terms of how I decided on shape and construction, I have a little short-sleeved cropped top. I think when you say cropped top, people always think of like really quite short. No, like waist cropped top. And I think a waist crop is really hard to get the right length. You know, this jumper, I definitely haven't succeeded in getting it perfect. And I think it can be really challenging, particularly with woolen garments where blocking can make such a difference to actually the length of the body, etc. So I modelled this top off this other top that I knew fitted just perfectly. It sits perfectly with a perfect amount of overlap with the top of my high-waisted trousers, where it doesn't then kind of make my waist disappear, but it also gives me coverage that if I bend over, you know, I'm not revealing my back or my front. So I knew I wanted to kind of model this, so I just kept holding this against this other top, and I found that really useful. I know that's not a new tip. Lots of people will advise, you know, if you have a jumper that really suits you and you love it, measure the circumference or the diameter of that jumper, the chest circumference, etc., and then apply that to patterns to give you the right amount of ease. That's a really well-known tip, but I think, yeah, it's also really helpful for things like sleeve length. So there we go. This is going to be a real staple in my work wardrobe for the winter, because one of my challenges, at least in my wardrobe, I don't know if other people have this, but my winter coats, the arms tend to be quite tight, and shoving woolen sleeves into quite tight sleeved coats doesn't really work. And if you do manage to get them in physically, you then end up being very restricted and kind of walking around like this. So having kind of woolen garments but with short sleeves is quite helpful. You get all the warmth around your body, but when you're inside, you can kind of counterbalance your temperature and having your arms exposed, and when you're outside, you've got your coat on. So anyway, this is going to be perfect. Gosh, I'm in a really waffly mood, evidently, but lots of little details with this project that I wanted to pick up on. I don't think I mentioned needle size, so that, I believe I knit this on 4mm needles, apart from the shoulder patches, which were knit on 2.25. I guess final thing is I used under 2 skeins of the Rowwork Sport. So quite a yarn, like quite a good stash buster, in the sense that if you had like about 1.5 skeins to 2 skeins, you can make a nice little top, and then using kind of leftover scraps to make adornments, whether they're on the shoulders, you could applique something around the waist, you could do embroidery, whatever it is. But I really like this idea of playing with not just knitting a garment, but then like design elements and embellishments that are not knitted in, if that makes any sense. They're adornments that come afterwards, and these shoulder pads I'd had in my mind for so long, particularly in the vibrant colours against a more neutral background. So nice to have actually finally made it. So that is 2 projects down. Let me take a little sip of hot chocolate. More of a gulp there. I've probably got marshmallows and cream all around my mouth. Sorry, everybody. So for my next project, and I did mention this in the last episode, but it was future knitting at that point. It is now present knitting, it is now real, it is alive, it is happening. So I've had in my mind, I'm obsessed with flea stitch this year. It's like my motif of the year, so to speak, and I'm experimenting with how many rows of plain knitting I do in between my rows of flea stitch. And I had in my mind as some gift knitting that I wanted to knit a cowl that was one colour as the background colour, and then was half and half when it came to the contrast colours. And the contrast colours I wanted to be this slaty blue and this vibrant mustard. So I am using Knitting for Olive Merino. This is the colourway Mustard, and this is the colourway Dusty Petroleum, and I'm knitting those in contrast with a background of light pearl grey. I had one ball of each colour, and I split my light pearl grey colour into two, which would be 2 25-gram balls. I am knitting this on a 3.5mm needle, I believe. Yep, I am. And I've cast on a few too many stitches to this tube cowl. It's a really nice depth to wear, but in terms of my main colour, that's all I've got left of my first half, and I'm nowhere near half length, right? So I think I say have to like it's a problem, but I ideally didn't want to buy more yarn, but I think I'm going to need to buy at least 2 more balls of this light pearl grey to finish this project. But I am really enjoying knitting it, and it's the perfect combination of that level of detail that keeps you interested, but you get those, I'm doing I think 3 rounds of just plain knitting in between those colourwork rounds. The colourwork, I'm doing 3 stitches, then a contrast colour stitch, 3 stitches, contrast colour stitch. So it's kind of no floats being caught, and because it's a kind of double thickness cowl, I'm knitting a big tube and then we'll seam the ends together. You know, I don't need to worry about floats. So it's a really, really nice knit, but the only reason I haven't knit more is I was debating whether to restart and do a smaller circumference, which would make the yarn go further. I think I've decided I'm not going to, but now I need to order more yarn, hence lack of further progress. But that is a project that was, as I say, in my future knitting category last time I spoke to you, and is now a reality, and that makes me very, very happy. And then the final thing I've been working on, I was so tempted to pull out of hibernation my 2 big sweater whips. So right back when I started this podcast in February time this year, I had cast on what I was calling my doodle sweater. I was using Sandnes Garn Tresco, which is a 80% Norwegian wool, 20% nylon blend, but is so rustic, it's kind of incredible. I bought a whole load of that on sale, and for like £2 a ball. It was incredible. And I was making this really experimental shaped sweater. In fact, it was actually one of the first times I tried this whole raglan knit straight sleeve construction, and I was doing it with bits of colour work, and there's loads of stuff in it that's really like experimental, new to me, and I love it. But I'm knitting it on 3.5mm needles, and all the yarn is either DK weight or heavier. It's an incredibly dense fabric, and I was really struggling with like the pressure it was putting on my wrists and my hands. I was ending up with very, very sore hands and a sore finger from like pushing the needle through. So I parked it over the summer because it was just too hot to work on it. The weather has been cooling down, but it's not quite been cold enough to have this mammoth jumper sat on my lap. So that was one whip that I was really, really keen to bring back out of hibernation, but I don't think we're quite there yet. I think November, December is going to be perfect. I do want it knit by Christmas though. And then the other sweater that's on a similar vein is a sweater that I am steeking so much. Again, it's a doodle, I'm not following any instructions. I'm using 2 strands of Wool Dreamers Manchalope in their like stone grey colourway, held together on 3.5mm needles, and then I'm using scrap yarn for colourwork doodles all over it. And so far I've knit to kind of halfway down the chest. I'm steeking the sleeves, the armholes, I'm going to steek the sides, but I want the sides to be perfectly, like I want the sides to have little panels in, but I want the body quite loose, but I want the sleeves to be quite fitted. So I just need to work on that perfect combination of tailoring for that. So, but that is also 2 strands of yarn on 3.5mm needles, so getting very, very dense, very, very warm, and still not quite the weather for it. So instead, satisfying my need for sweaters, jumpers, I cast on the Nord sweater by Sandnes Garn. I often forget that lots of these big Scandi yarn brands have their own patterns on their website. They're very often not on Ravelry, but they do have them on their website, and I often forget this, and they're beautiful. So I have cast it on. I have knit the colourwork section, which on this particular sweater is kind of quite short. It's going to sit more as like a collar. It doesn't come all the way down your chest. It's very much up on your décolletage and up on your shoulders. I have used multiple scraps from other projects, which is really good fun. I've used a white Suri alpaca from my Recollect Cow project. This Suri alpaca is from Retrosario Rosa Pomar, and it's one of their kind of, they bring it in as a base and then they stock it and kind of say, we didn't make it, but we're selling it. I hope that kind of makes sense. Which I know is the case with all yarn brands. What I mean is it's kind of unbranded, so they call it they're kind of like, this isn't our brand, but it's also not being kind of owned by anyone else. Yeah, probably making zero sense. If you know, you know. If you don't know, don't worry about it. And then I'm also using, I've got some of the Beetroot sock mini from like in a lace up at the top. I've got some Knitting for Olive in like a kind of really dark golden colour, held double. I have then got some Cumulus by Fibre Spates in Sea Foam or Sea Green. And then my background colour is one of my all-time favourite yarns that I actually only got introduced to earlier this year, which is Ficalana Panilla, which when I first used it I thought was a DK weight, but it's not. It's kind of like a heavy fingering sport DK. It's kind of somewhere in that bracket, and I love it. It just creates the most beautiful density of fabric. I am knitting all of this on 3.5mm needles. I think I probably should have gone down a needle size for this main body now that I'm not doing the colour work. I thought I got away with it. When I kind of space everything out, it looks fine, but it does look a bit bobbly in places. I am feeling a bit warm next to this fire. Oh well. Better to be too warm and not too cold. So yeah, I thought I got away with it, but maybe not. We'll see. But I need to then obviously go back in and pick up the neckline. The sample on the pattern, it's really interesting. The instructions tell you to cast the collar on in the main colour, but the picture, they haven't done that. They've used one of their contrast colours, which I just find really funny. They've knit this in just in mohair, all of it. I've obviously chosen not to do that. I know it will affect the density of the fabric, but I just wanted to do like a kind of cool colourwork motif that I didn't need to think about. Someone else had designed and thought through. And the other thing I really like about this is it's a combination of round yoke construction and raglan. And obviously that's just a theme for me. I like compound mix-ups of constructions. I'm also doing something very different with my raglan increases that I've never done before. So I'm putting a marker in between two stitches instead of framing a raglan stitch. I'm just having the one marker between two stitches, and basically when I'm increasing either side of that marker, I pick up the bar of the stitch between the stitches that are either side of the marker. So the bar that's directly under the marker, I pick that up and I do a right or left increase, and then I slip the marker and then I go into that same bar and do my other side increase. And so far it's actually kind of looking really beautiful. It kind of creates like a kind of like this kind of shape. Little tiny eyelets. I didn't want to do eyelet increases because I didn't want the bigger holes. This is really elegant, really cool. I might do this again. It was kind of just a bit of an experiment, but I think it's gone quite well. So I will definitely take a close-up picture and put it on Instagram when I've got kind of more of it done. I've only done like 2 or 3 increases so far. So yeah, so I think I will roughly follow this pattern. I will keep looking back, seeing where they're kind of suggesting I do increases to. I'll take a bit of a view as to whether I think that'll fit my body, and we'll go from there. But I only cast this on beginning of this week, so I've really cracked on with this. This has been a really enjoyable knit. So that's actually all the knitting chat I have for today, and I don't have any acquisitions to talk about. I just wanted to keep this very casual, informal. I don't normally sit on the floor, I don't normally lean on a sofa, and I don't normally have a fire, but these are all nice additions this week. I thought I'd do a little bit of podcast admin, just very momentarily, bear with me. And then for those who want to stick around just to hear a little bit more about what's been going on in life in general, then I'm very happy to share that at the end of this episode. So for podcast admin, if you have been watching this podcast episode and you've really enjoyed it, or you've been watching more than one of my episodes and you have not yet subscribed, please could I ask you to click the subscribe button, not just for me, but for all the other viewers who've been taking part in the 1,000 subscriber giveaway. This has been running now for several months. We've been so close to 1,000 subscribers for a really long time, and on the last episode we had lots of people subscribe, a real pickup, and we're now 20 people away from hitting 1,000 subscribers. And once we get there, it will mean I can contact winners, I can draw winners, I can then contact winners, and I can start putting together packages and really give back to this amazing community that is supporting me so much and kind of giving me a space to connect with other knitters. So I'm just really excited to draw together packages for all of you, and it's just such a shame for those who've been really participating in this giveaway, which, as a very brief recap if you haven't heard before, basically there's 2 ways to enter the giveaway. One is to subscribe on YouTube, and then to share this podcast with someone else you think would enjoy it, whatever medium that's through. You can WhatsApp it to them, you can Instagram it to them, you can comment down below and include them in the comments, you can email it to them. Whatever you do, just take a screenshot, just so that if you are the winner, we can keep things super fair and everyone's got kind of a record of what they've done. And then the other way to enter is to simply subscribe here and follow me over on Instagram. My Instagram is @work.knits. I am not one of those super active people who post every day, but I do try and post something interesting each week, and I'm hoping to get considerably better at posting in the coming weeks and months. More news on that later on. So those are the 2 ways you can enter. As I say, we are 20 people away. The way I run my giveaways is to wait until I've drawn a winner to then ask them what their preferences are in terms of yarn bases, in terms of colours, in terms of what matters to them. Is there certain types of yarn businesses they want to support, and also what kind of knitting they want to do. So all the preferences, and then I draw together packages based on those preferences. I do have a loose idea in mind of how big each package is going to be and kind of what kinds of things are going to be included, but it just gives that flexibility to allow the winner to make sure the package really suits them. So that's my little bit of podcast admin. We did have another rolling giveaway, which was every other week I was drawing a winner from the comments on the previous video and reaching out and offering one of my designs, one of my patterns for free to that individual. I'm very happy to still run this, but people weren't responding or reaching out to me to, when they won things, people weren't touching base. So it was quite difficult to then give people patterns, but if people would be interested in me picking this back up, do let me know down below. Very happy to, would love to share all the love with you guys. And that's on that very final note for admin, is I have released a couple of new patterns in the last couple of months. Thank you all for your support, for the test knitters who did such a marvellous job. Those are both up on Ravelry and will be linked down below, and I think they're going to be really good knits for this transition into the colder weather, albeit a bit of a slow transition if it's anything like it is here in the UK, where we're still up in the kind of mid-teens degrees Celsius at the moment. So yeah. Do let me know, and any feedback on those designs, do let me know. I'm still learning, I'm still evolving, very open to feedback. Test knits are a whole new world for me and I'm loving it, but always keen to hear thoughts. So if you want to cut things off here and you've spent your time with me, thank you so much. Have a lovely rest of the day. If you'd like to sit around for some chat about life in general, then I will turn to that in a moment after a sip of hot chocolate. Oh, it's so good. It's normally too sweet for me, but that is so good. Okay, for all you lovely people who tell me all about your wonderful lives and tell me about what you're knitting and who like to stick around for this, thank you so much. Life has, I feel, I don't want to use the generic expression that life has been busy. For longer term viewers, you'll know that this year has been quite monumental for myself and my partner. We are getting married in a month, and not only are we getting married, but we both changed jobs. we're trying to sell a house, moved in with family and halfway across the country, all in 6 months. And it's been a bit of a roller coaster. You guys have all been so supportive. Honestly, the comments been like, you know, give yourself a break, don't worry about coming back regularly, do what's best for you, we love seeing you, but you know, we understand, you know, take joy in your knitting. Like honestly, those messages have been so needed, because I think I do put a lot of pressure on myself, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, the couple, to really always be like trying to perform at the very best. And sometimes you've got to be like, actually my best sometimes means saying I can't do this or I can't do that. So yeah, thank you so much. Sorry, struggling today. So yeah, so I'm not going to just say that the last couple of weeks have been busy. Wedding admin has definitely ramped up. We are confirming final numbers. Payments are going out the door like you've never seen. But it's getting really exciting. Later this afternoon, I'm probably going to start doing things like making candles. We're going to make our own candles, our own scent for the wedding. I'm really excited. There's lots of handmade elements. So a very personal wedding. The last couple of weeks have also been very busy at work for me. I've been commuting quite a bit, and that's meant I haven't knitted as much as I want to. There's been, yeah, it just feels like loads and loads of admin, and I have really found that knitting's been my like solace in this time. I would love to get to a point where I can spend more of my time knitting. It is what brings me joy. But such is, right guys, such is. But I have really been trying to focus on which projects are going to really give me what I need, rather than being like, oh, I should finish this, I should finish that. I was really keen to go and drop into a yarn shop in London. I didn't manage to do that. I also want to head back over to the Oxford yarn store because they have an incredible stock. I also really want to go and see, I think it's called Chiltern Farm. Weird small world, but I'd heard of them, really wanted to go and see them. They have lots of sheep from different British breeds, and they kind of make small batch yarns as well. And they do loads of things off their farm actually, it's incredible. But kind of had heard of them, really liked them. My mum had actually also bumped into them at a kind of weaving festival, and then really strangely, it turns out that one of our friends works on the farm but doing something completely different. So very small world, and I am trying to organise an opportunity to go and kind of interview the owner and go and explore the farm, meet all the sheep, stroke some sheep, and obviously buy some yarn. So that will be on the cards at some point. I've just really got to get things in order, but weekends are pretty precious at the moment, and lots of them are spent doing seating plans and all that wonderful joy. So yeah, life is pretty much wedding. As I said, this weekend I've been on my hen do. I've come down with the most horrendous cold. We had quite a hilarious weekend nonetheless, and my friends were very kind and did not avoid me and worry about the spread of germs. I've had so many hugs, so much love, and it's so special to have so many of the really important women in my life all together, all getting on so well, and all supporting each other so much. We did some really fun activities, but just women supporting women has to be one of my favourite things. So lots going on, but a really beautiful time. Just the amount of support we're receiving from so many different directions is a real privilege, and we feel so lucky. And actually that's been probably one of the most touching parts of getting married, is the support that we have been lucky enough to have from other people in the run-up, and it really bonds you with people because they are so invested in this really special time for you. So yeah, I don't really know if that constitutes a life update. Oh, I mean, I guess something else I should say to you guys. So many of you have been really kindly checking in on like how it's going with selling the house, etc. The short answer is not very well. The property's in such great shape, but the market here in the UK has just absolutely crashed. So we're currently trying to make some decisions, but it might be that we kind of keep the house, and what we do then, not really sure. But obviously we're currently living with family, and as generous as the family are being with letting us stay. That's obviously not a permanent or, you know, ideal situation for anyone for a really long period of time, you know, months and years. So we're just evaluating next steps. I think given that the wedding is next month and then we're off on honeymoon, we come back and then it's, you know, festive season. I think probably in the new year is when we will really solidify our next steps and our next plans. But nonetheless, exciting. It's a bit up in the air. I have no idea where we'll be in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, but that's exciting. Genuinely, that's exciting. So keep your fingers crossed for me. I hope everything's going well for you. Do let me know down below in the comments, and I will look forward to catching up with you in 2 weeks, where hopefully there'll be a lot more knitting. I'm really carving out time for knitting in the next 2 weeks. More for myself than for the podcast, but obviously it has great knock-on impacts on the podcast, so hopefully loads to share with you in 2 weeks' time. For now, happy knitting, stay safe everybody, bye!